My name is Judith Walker, and at 27, I built a comfortable life for myself as a freelance programmer. Living on the East Coast while my family remained back west wasn't something I'd originally planned, but after college, I just never found a compelling reason to move back. My parents, Linda and Robert, and my younger sister Emma still lived in our childhood home in Oregon, and I typically managed one visit a year, usually during summer when flight prices were reasonable. So when my phone rang a week before Christmas, showing my mom's number, I wasn't expecting much beyond our usual catch-up. "Judith, it's been so long since we've seen you," Mom said, her voice unusually enthusiastic. "Your father and I were talking, and we really want you home for Christmas this year. The whole family together, wouldn't that be perfect?" I balanced my laptop on my knees, continuing to debug a client's website while half listening. "I don't know, Mom, tickets are crazy expensive this close to Christmas, and I've got several deadlines." "Please, honey," she interrupted, "we miss you so much. Emma's been asking about you too. She can't wait to see you. It's been 2 years now?" She was right. I'd skipped last year's visit after a fight with my dad about my career choices. He still didn't understand how programming could be a real job, especially freelancing. "Look, we really want the whole family together this Christmas," Mom continued. "It would mean so much to us." There was something in her tone I couldn't quite place. Urgency, maybe? After a moment's hesitation, I made a decision that would change everything. "Okay, I'll come." The relief in her voice was palpable. "Wonderful. Let us know your flight details. We can't wait to see you." After hanging up, I immediately regretted my decision. Finding a last-minute flight during the holiday rush would be nearly impossible, not to mention exorbitant. Still, I'd made a promise, and some small part of me was curious about this sudden family reunion enthusiasm. As predicted, the ticket cost me nearly double the normal price. I also rushed to finish client projects ahead of schedule, working late into the night for a week straight. By the time I was packing my suitcase, I was exhausted but somewhat excited. Maybe this would be the Christmas that finally bridged the distance between us. I spent more than I should have on gifts: a high-end watch for Dad, a cashmere sweater for Mom, and expensive noise-canceling headphones for Emma. I wanted them to see I was doing well, that my unconventional career choice was paying off. My flight was scheduled for December 23rd, giving me plenty of time to arrive before Christmas Eve. The airport was predictably chaotic, with harried travelers, crying children, and endless security lines. By the time I boarded my 6-hour flight, I was already questioning my decision. When I finally landed in Portland, I rented a car for the hour-long drive to my parents' suburban home. The familiar streets were decked with holiday lights, a light dusting of snow making everything look like a Christmas card. Despite my exhaustion, I felt a twinge of nostalgia. This had been home once. I pulled into the driveway around 8 p.m., noticing that the house was oddly dark for early evening. Perhaps they were out for dinner? I still had the spare key on my keychain, so I unlocked the front door and stepped inside. "Hello, Mom, Dad," I called out, dragging my suitcase behind me. The house was silent. No Christmas tree, no decorations, and no sign of my family. Confused, I walked further into the living room and switched on the lights. That's when I noticed two things simultaneously: a handwritten note on the coffee table and an elderly woman in a wheelchair in the corner of the room, watching me with tired eyes. I picked up the note first. "Judith, we went on a trip for 2 weeks. You have to look after your grandmother and clean the house. Love, Mom, Dad, and Emma." I read it twice, unable to process what I was seeing. They'd left? After practically begging me to fly across the country for Christmas? "Hello," came a frail voice from the wheelchair. "You must be Judith." I looked up, finally taking in the elderly woman before me. She was painfully thin, her clothes hanging loosely on her frame. Her white hair was matted and unwashed, and even from across the room, I could smell that she hadn't bathed in quite some time. "I'm your father's Aunt Martha," she said. "They call me Grandma Martha around here, though I suppose I'm actually your great-aunt." I vaguely remembered Dad mentioning his aunt who had no children. But this, I'd had no idea she was living with my parents now. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a video message. Emma's face filled the screen, sunglasses perched on her head and what looked like a beach in the background. "Hey sis, surprise," she was laughing, the sound grating on my already frayed nerves. "Hope you don't mind babysitting grandma for a bit. She's totally crazy, by the way, does weird stuff all the time. Sometimes she even pees her pants." Emma's laughter grew louder. "You're gonna have so much fun this Christmas. Enjoy cleaning up after her." The video ended, and I stood frozen in the middle of my parents' living room, the phone still in my hand, the elderly woman watching me with sad, knowing eyes. I wanted to scream. I wanted to walk right back out the door, get in my rental car, and drive straight to the airport. But as I looked at the neglected woman in the corner, I knew I couldn't leave her alone. "When did they leave?" I asked Martha, trying to keep my voice steady. "This morning," she replied softly, "they said you were coming to take care of me." My blood boiled. They had planned this all along, the emotional plea for family time, the urgency in my mother's voice. It had all been a calculated setup to dump their responsibilities on me while they enjoyed a vacation. I knelt before Martha's wheelchair, truly looking at her for the first time. Her skin was paper thin, her cheekbones sharp against her sunken face. The smell of unwashed body and stale urine made me wince, but I tried not to show it. "Let's get you something to eat first," I said, standing up, "then we can talk more." I headed to the kitchen, expecting to find it well stocked. Instead, I was greeted by a sink overflowing with dirty dishes crusted with old food. On the table sat moldy bread and shriveled, rotting fruit. The stench was almost unbearable. When I opened the refrigerator, my heart sank. It was practically empty except for a carton of expired milk, some wilted vegetables, and a half-eaten container of yogurt with a fuzzy layer of mold on top. "Those bastards," I muttered under my breath. I checked the pantry and found a container of oatmeal. It wasn't much, but it would have to do until I could go shopping. While the oatmeal cooked, I returned to Martha. "I'm making you something to eat. When was the last time they gave you a bath?" Martha looked embarrassed. "I'm not sure, a while." "That's okay," I reassured her, "after you eat, we'll get you cleaned up." I brought her the bowl of oatmeal, sitting beside her as she ate slowly, her hands trembling. As she ate, I gently asked her questions. "How long have you been living here, Martha?" "About a year," she replied between small spoonfuls. "After I fell and broke my hip, I couldn't live alone anymore. Your father offered to take me in." "And he's your legal guardian now?" She nodded. "He and Linda both. They get money for taking care of me, from the state and from my accounts. They have access to everything. My savings, my pension. And they're renting out my house too." "They're what?" I couldn't hide my shock. "They found renters for my house last year, cash only, no lease. I don't think they're reporting the income." Martha looked down. "They told me not to tell anyone." The pieces were falling into place. My parents and sister didn't work because they didn't need to. They were living off Martha's money, her pension, guardianship payments, and rental income from her house. "Do you know how much they get each month?" I asked. "The guardianship pays about $2,000, plus my pension. And I think they get $1,500 for my house." Martha's voice was barely above a whisper. "Over $4,000 a month, tax-free. No wonder they could afford a luxury vacation while leaving their elderly charge to starve." After she finished eating, I helped Martha to the bathroom. "I'm going to run you a bath, okay? Can you manage on your own, or would you like help?" "I can't get in and out of the tub by myself," she admitted. "They usually just wipe me down with a cloth." I swallowed my anger and helped her undress, trying to preserve her dignity as much as possible. Her body was alarmingly thin, with bedsores forming on her back and hips. I gently bathed her, washed her hair, and helped her into clean clothes I found in a small dresser in the hallway. As I wheeled her back to the living room, I asked, "Where do you sleep, Martha?" She pointed to a door off the hallway I hadn't noticed before. "In there." I opened the door and was hit by a wave of foul air. It was a converted storage closet, no windows, with just enough room for a twin bed and the wheelchair. The bed sheets were stained and clearly hadn't been changed in weeks. Empty medication bottles littered a small table. "What medications are you supposed to be taking?" I asked, picking up one of the bottles. "Blood pressure pills, pain medication for my hip, and something for my heart," Martha replied. "But they ran out a while ago." "Your father said he'd get refills, but..." I'd seen enough. I pulled out my phone and searched for the local Adult Protective Services number. "I'm calling for help," I told Martha. "What they're doing to you isn't just wrong, it's criminal." While waiting for someone to answer, I asked, "Martha, do you know when they're coming back?" "January 6th, she said. They went to Cancun. 2 weeks, they'd left this vulnerable woman alone for 2 weeks, with no food and no medication." When the social worker answered, I explained the situation as calmly as I could. "They promised to send someone immediately." I hung up and turned to Martha. "Help is coming. In the meantime, I'm going to clean up a bit and run to the store for food and supplies. Will you be okay for about an hour?" Martha reached for my hand, her eyes watery. "You're the first person who's really looked at me in months." I squeezed her hand gently. "I'm not going anywhere." At the grocery store, I loaded my cart with nutritious, easy-to-eat foods, personal care items, and cleaning supplies. I also stopped at a pharmacy, explaining the situation to the pharmacist who helped me get emergency refills of Martha's medications. When I returned, social services had arrived, a woman named Diane and a man who introduced himself as Dr. Reynolds. "We'd like to document the conditions," Diane explained, camera in hand. "And Dr. Reynolds needs to examine Ms. Martha." I showed them everything: the empty refrigerator, the squalid bedroom, the expired medications. Dr. Reynolds examined Martha thoroughly, his expression growing grimmer by the minute. "Severe malnutrition, dehydration, untreated hypertension, and multiple stage 2 pressure ulcers," he reported. "She needs immediate medical care. I'm recommending emergency removal from this environment," Diane added, filling out forms. "Ms. Walker, as the reporting party and a family member, would you be willing to act as a temporary contact person?" "Absolutely," I replied without hesitation, "whatever she needs." Within hours, Martha was admitted to the hospital. I followed the ambulance in my rental car, carrying her few belongings in a plastic bag. As I sat in the hospital waiting room while they ran tests and started 4 fluids, I made 2 calls, one to a hotel to book a room for myself, and another to a local lawyer who specialized in elder law. The next morning, I met with Jeremy Hoffman, an elder law attorney with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. His office was small but immaculate, with framed photos of elderly clients on the walls. "So your parents became Martha's guardians to access her assets," Jeremy summarized after I explained everything. "And they've been neglecting her while profiting from her property and pension." I nodded, exhaustion washing over me. "Can we stop them?" "Absolutely," he said firmly. "What they're doing is elder abuse, both physical neglect and financial exploitation. We can petition the court to remove them as guardians immediately." "Good, I want to take over Martha's care." "Let's start the paperwork," Jeremy said, pulling out several forms. "We'll also need to address the illegal rental of Martha's home." After meeting with the lawyer, I went straight to the hospital. Martha looked better already, cleaner, more alert, within 4 delivering fluids and medications. A nurse was checking her vital signs. "Her blood pressure's improving," the nurse told me. The doctor ordered an echocardiogram for her heart and some other tests. "Thank you," I said, sitting beside Martha's bed. "How are you feeling?" "Better," Martha said, her voice stronger than yesterday. "The doctor said I was severely dehydrated and malnourished." "Did they ask you about how my parents treated you?" Martha nodded. "A social worker came this morning," I told her everything. She hesitated. "Judith, I don't want to cause trouble, but..." "You're not causing trouble," I interrupted gently. "They are. And they need to be held accountable." "What will happen to me?" "I can't go back there." I took her hand. "I've spoken with a lawyer. We're going to petition the court to make me your guardian instead." And I thought maybe we could live in your house, once we evict the illegal tenants. For the first time, I saw Martha smile. It transformed her face, making her look years younger. Over the next week, while Martha remained in the hospital receiving treatment, I worked with Jeremy to build our case. The hospital documented Martha's physical condition with photographs and medical reports. The Adult Protective Services worker, Diane, provided her assessment of the living conditions. I gave a detailed statement about what I'd found when I arrived. Jeremy filed an emergency petition to remove my parents as guardians. He also sent formal eviction notices to the tenants in Martha's house, citing the illegal nature of their occupancy. I spent my days at the hospital with Martha and my evenings at the hotel, working remotely for my clients. I canceled my return flight and explained to my clients that I was dealing with a family emergency. Most were understanding and flexible about deadlines. On December 30th, Martha was discharged from the hospital. Her condition had improved dramatically with proper nutrition, medication, and care. Though still frail, she could now get up from her wheelchair and walk short distances with a walker. Since we couldn't yet access her house, I used my savings to rent a small furnished apartment for us both. The unit was accessible, with wide doorways for her wheelchair and a walk-in shower with safety bars. Each day, Martha grew stronger. She began to tell me stories about her life, how she'd worked as a librarian for 40 years, how she'd traveled to Europe in her 50s, how she'd never married but had many close friends over the years. On January 5th, Jeremy called with news. The judge granted our emergency petition. Your parents have been removed as Martha's guardians, pending a full hearing. You've been appointed temporary guardian. What about Martha's finances? The court has frozen the accounts your parents had access to. We'll do a full accounting at the hearing to determine how much they've taken. And the house? The tenants have until January 15th to vacate. After that, you and Martha can move in. I thanked him and shared the news with Martha, who cried with relief. I never thought I'd see my home again, she confessed. The next day my phone exploded with calls and texts from my family. They had returned home to find Martha gone, the house untouched, and all the food in the refrigerator rotted. I ignored most messages but finally answered my mother's call around noon. Judith, where are you? Where's Martha? What have you done? She sounded frantic. I'm with Martha, I said coldly, she's safe now. What do you mean safe? Bring her home immediately. We're her guardians. Not anymore, I replied, I'll be at the house at 2 p.m. with someone from Adult Protective Services and my lawyer. We have matters to discuss. I hung up before she could respond. At exactly 2 p.m., I arrived at my parents' house with Jeremy and Diane from Adult Protective Services. My parents and Emma were waiting, their faces a mixture of anger and fear. What's this about? My father demanded as we sat in the living room. It's about elder abuse, Jeremy said bluntly, opening his briefcase. Specifically, your abuse and neglect of Martha Anderson, whom you were legally obligated to care for. My mother's face paled. That's ridiculous. We take excellent care of her. Really? I countered. When I arrived, she was starving, unwashed, without her medications, living in filth. You left her alone for 2 weeks with no food. We left you to take care of her, Emma shouted. This is your fault. Mrs. Walker, Diane interjected, addressing my mother, we have documented extensive neglect, including severe malnutrition, untreated medical conditions, and unacceptable living conditions. This is just a misunderstanding, my father said nervously. We were planning to refill her prescriptions when we got back. The prescriptions hadn't been refilled for months, I said. Her doctors confirmed it. Jeremy pulled out a document. The court has removed you as Martha's guardians and appointed Judith temporarily. There will be a full hearing in 2 weeks. My sister leapt to her feet. She's just doing this to get Martha's money for herself. Judith's the one who abandoned the family. Jeremy remained calm. If you continue making defamatory statements, Ms. Walker, we can add slander to the potential charges. Charges? My mother's voice was barely audible. Financial exploitation of an elder is a criminal offense, Jeremy explained. as is renting property without the owner's true consent and failing to report rental income to the IRS. The color drained from my father's face. "What do you want from us?" "Stay away from Martha," I said firmly. "And pray the district attorney doesn't press charges." 6 months have passed since that confrontation in my parents' living room. Martha and I now live comfortably in her house, a charming 3-bedroom craftsman with a front porch where she likes to sit in the afternoons, watching the neighborhood children play. The court hearing went exactly as Jeremy predicted. My parents didn't even attempt to contest the guardianship transfer after seeing the mountain of evidence against them. The judge permanently appointed me as Martha's guardian and ordered a full financial accounting of all her assets. They took nearly $40,000 from her accounts in just 1 year, Jeremy told me after reviewing the financial records. Plus the rental income from the house. "Can we get it back?" I asked. "We've filed a civil suit. Given the evidence, they'll likely settle rather than face a jury." Martha's health improved steadily with proper care. The home health nurse who visits 3 times a week is amazed by her progress. At 86, Martha now gets around mostly with just a walker, only using the wheelchair for longer outings. She's regained weight, her mind is sharp, and she's even started cooking again, simple meals that she insists on preparing herself. I converted one of the bedrooms into my office, setting up my workstation near a window that overlooks the backyard garden. Working remotely while caring for Martha has been easier than I expected. My clients never know if I'm in Oregon or on the East Coast, and I've even picked up several new projects. Martha insisted we update her will soon after moving into the house. We returned to Jeremy's office, where she clearly stated her wishes. "I want everything to go to Judith," she told him firmly. "She saved my life." Jeremy gently explained that my parents might contest the will, claiming I had undue influence over her. "Then let's make sure they can't," Martha replied. "I want a doctor to certify that I'm of sound mind. I want witnesses, I want a videotape, whatever it takes." Jeremy arranged for a geriatric psychiatrist to evaluate Martha and certify her cognitive competence. The will signing was videotaped, with the doctor and 2 witnesses present. Martha was clear and articulate about her decision. "I don't want them to get a penny," she said on the recording. "Not after what they did. I didn't care about the inheritance, but I understood her need to make this final statement." Last month, we received an unexpected email alert from the bank. Someone had attempted to withdraw $50,000 from one of Martha's accounts, an account my parents once had access to. "It was your mother," the bank manager confirmed after investigating. "She had the old account information but couldn't complete the transaction because we froze the account per the court order. I sent my mother a brief, cold email. The bank reported your attempted theft. If you try again, I will press criminal charges. It's time for you and Emma to get real jobs." They never responded. Through my cousin Jack, I occasionally hear news about my family. My parents were forced to sell their expensive car and cancel their country club membership. My father, at 58, took a job at a hardware store. My mother started working part-time at a clothing boutique. Emma, at 24, finally moved out and found entry-level work as a receptionist. "They blame you for everything," Jack told me during a recent call. "They tell everyone you manipulated Martha and stole their inheritance." "Let them talk," I replied. "The truth is in the court records." The neighbors have embraced us warmly. They come by regularly to visit Martha, bringing baked goods and staying for tea. Many confessed they'd worried about her when my parents had control but didn't know how to help. Last week, Martha and I took a vacation, her first in over a decade. Her doctors recommended a resort in Arizona with therapeutic mineral pools, and we spent a month enjoying the desert warmth and specialized senior activities. "I never thought I'd travel again," Martha said as we watched the sunset from our balcony. "Thank you for giving me my life back." When we returned, Martha suggested something that touched me deeply. "I've been thinking," she said one evening as we sat on the porch. "After I'm gone, I'd like some of my money to go to helping other elderly people who don't have family to look out for them." The next day, we met with Jeremy to amend her will, allocating a portion of her estate to a foundation that assists isolated seniors. This way, something good will come from everything that happened, Martha explained. My parents have tried contacting me several times in recent months, claiming they want to restore the relationship. Each time, I've declined. Life has fallen into a pleasant rhythm. I work during the day while Martha tends to her small garden or visits with neighbors. In the evenings, we watch old movies or I read to her from classic novels. On weekends, we explore the town, visiting farmers markets or attending community events. I never expected at 27 to be living with and caring for an elderly relative, but this arrangement has brought me more peace and purpose than I ever found in my solitary life on the East Coast. Do you ever regret it? Martha asked me recently. Giving up your old life for this? I thought about my cramped apartment, my takeout dinners for one, my weekends spent alone with my laptop. I didn't give up anything important, I told her honestly. I gained a family, a real one. And as we sat together on the porch swing, watching fireflies appear in the summer twilight, I knew I'd made the right choice.